We've got a lot to talk about this morning, and for a more in-depth look, we're joined by Osita Nwanevu, staff writer at Slate covering politics. Osita, good morning.
Good morning.
Let's talk about the tax reform plan, which is the president's biggest legislative victory. How critical do you think it was for the administration to get this done before the end of the year?
Oh, it was pretty critical, and it's a big victory not just for the Trump administration, but for the Republican Party in general. This is going to be the fourth or fifth largest tax cut in American history. It's the biggest one since the Tax Reform Act of 1986. So if you're a fan of Republican orthodoxy on tax policy, you feel pretty good. And obviously, this is an administration that has had a lot of fits and starts with its legislative agenda. We saw that with the attempts to repeal no place for Obamacare. So this is really their first unqualified success, and it was very important for them, I think, to show that they were capable of succeeding legislatively on something.
You know, they get a legislative victory, but polls still show that there are a lot of Americans who are not happy with this. Does this have the potential to come back and bite them?
I think it might already be biting them. I mean, we saw a Monmouth poll earlier this week that said 47% of Americans, plurality, said that they disapproved. There are other polls that are more positive, but at best, Americans are pretty evenly split on this. And what's worse for Republicans, there are actually a lot of Americans who think that their taxes are going to go up.
Right.
If you believe the Monmouth poll, about half the public thinks this. And so, you know...
So do you think they'll see a shift, though, if they start actually getting tax refunds? Do you think that'll change their perception of it?
It definitely might, but you know, you're not going to see the full effect of this on the American taxpayer until they're filing their taxes in 2019.
Yeah.
Which means that the Republicans are going to have to trust that the public takes them at their word about the benefits of a lot of this stuff. And we're seeing now that when you poll people about the party that they trust on taxes, Democrats, according to a Wall Street Journal NBC poll, have taken the lead on that issue for the first time in a couple of years.
So what does that mean for the midterms? Because that's going to be before they see the full effect.
Yeah, you know, I think that basically we already know what the Democratic messaging is going to be. We saw Nancy Pelosi say earlier this week that this represented an attempt to create a permanent plutocracy. You can already predict the ads. So, you know, it's going to be a big issue if the Democrats succeed in making it one and keeping the spotlight on it. Obviously, the midterms are about an eternity from now.
Right.
But, you know, I think that you could be hard-pressed to craft a better bill for Democratic counter-messaging than this one. The skew of the benefits towards the wealthy is not something that's easy to explain in a populist political climate. So I think the Democrats are going to have a pretty easy time crafting this into their already existing narratives about the Republican Party.
We heard Chip Reid talking about the GOP's interest now and the president's interest, particularly in looking at infrastructure and funding infrastructure spending. But as Chip said, he's not likely to get Democratic votes, which he needs.
Absolutely.
Are we headed into a year leading up to the midterms in which there's going to be absolutely no bipartisan cooperation whatsoever?
Well, apart from infrastructure, there are actually two issues, smaller issues than big infrastructure bills, but still important issues where we could see action. With this stopgap funding bill that was just passed this week, they punted on CHIP, the Children's Health Insurance Program, and they also punted on DACA. These are both issues with a fair amount of bipartisan support for actually achieving some kind of solution. There are already negotiations on both of those fronts. With DACA, I mean, Democrats would like to see a clean bill. Republicans would like to see funding for border security, other immigration measures. As far as CHIP goes, they're basically at an impasse over how to fund things. But these are basically issues where there's actually time pressure for Democrats and Republicans to come to some kind of solution. 122 people lose their DACA status a day, as long as this maintains, you know, as long as this is still an impasse. And with CHIP, I mean, they're afraid that, you know, as many as 2 million people could lose funding, too many children could lose funding in January. Thankfully, they were able to pass a stopgap funding measure until March. But, you know, these are two issues where there's a lot of time pressure to actually have an impact. And I think that that's something that could draw Democrats and Republicans closer.
All right. Osita Nwanevu, thank you very much for the very latest.